Hello, everyone. We are live. It's Delaney here and Grady without Shawn today. Special surprise. Hey, Grady.
Hey, how's it going, Dell? Looking forward to it. This is going to be interesting.
I know. I'm so excited.
Me
Um,
too.
I was hoping to start with a couple announcements, and if you have any, you're welcome to share.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, so lots going on behind the scenes at the Great News Network. We might have it look like we're being a little quiet on the surface, but we're building a lot of things for Yeshuans and Grady's website and lots more to come. So wanted to just mention that. We also have a United Front conference August 1st and 2nd. We confirmed a local Sikh temple is going to participate, and a representative from their congregation is going to speak with us. We visited them this past Sunday, and it was fascinating the way that they practice, and we got a sort of quick rundown on what they believe and why they do things the way they do. And I would love to talk to you more about that, Grady. They do so much,
Wow.
and they do really interesting things with like everything's sort of about equality and all this different stuff, but they also don't believe in an afterlife, I guess. So
Mm,
I didn't know that. So anyway, they're excited to participate. We Jeff is going to be speaking. Our friend Jeff, he comes from a really specific perspective on God and the Bible.
mm.
Um, uh, we tentatively think Larry Norris Sr. is going to speak, who presented at the Christian Peace Initiative conference last year.
That'll
And
be great.
yeah, I think he fits a United Front even better than a Christian Peace Initiative with all his background in with Native Americans. He was a former Methodist pastor, but still is an open call. If you guys, we specifically are looking for a Muslim participant and perhaps a proper Jewish participant if they're willing. But yeah, anyway, that I wanted to announce that we have the Cult Proof conference that will be in September. And we'll send out some emails as this takes more shape, but that one's going to be really exciting. Also, Check My Church is in the chat right now. Hi, Sarah. She is putting it on with us. She will be the keynote speaker, Sarah Young of Check My Church, and we're going to have Chris Shelton speaking, who's a former Scientologist and a cult expert, and Matthew Bywater, who's one of his colleagues, and then Jordan Tanksley, who is does her own work in the Christian faith with similar to Sarah with regard to abuse and control. All
Wow,
right.
that sounds really great. Sounds like we got a whole lineup there.
I
I'm really
know.
interested about hearing about the Sikh and Scientology's always been one of those that I shouldn't say fascinates me because
No,
it
I
doesn't. It
know.
really doesn't because it's just so weird. But that's why it fascinates me. Is I'd really
Yeah.
love to hear more about that
Yeah.
uh, with L. Ron Hubbard and that. But that's part of the that isn't the United Front though, right?
No, that's a separate
Yeah.
that yeah, that's a separate conference called Cult Proof.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Because
That
I didn't think Scientology was gonna want to participate in the United
oh
Front very much.
no,
That is
no.
kind of
In
out there.
fact, I'm not even sure. I don't think Chris Shelton is a believer necessarily, but he's done a lot of interviews and stuff with my dad, and I think he appreciates the perspective.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, it's going to be really interesting, and we have a lot more to come too. We have the Christian Peace Initiative conference coming in November, and I think we want to do that a men's and a women's conference early next year. So Grady and everyone listening, if you guys think of participants for any of these that you think would be good, please send us an email.
Okay. Sure will. So
Yeah,
what's on the agenda today, sis?
we
Got lots of
have
questions this week, or
yeah, I we have YouTube comments. We have a couple questions from the community that I think you saw, and we have one here in the chat already. And you are no Shawn today, no Sarah. He is at his grandson's graduation. They're both graduating from 8th grade and 5th grade or something like that. So he
Hey,
went.
to start us off, would you mind if I address something that we brought up last week that there was a
No,
question about?
please. Yes, I please take the reins.
Oh, I don't know. I hit my microphone. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay, last week, if you remember, we were talking about angel of the Lord and Christophanies,
Mm.
and the question came up about Acts 5, and that was after, of course, Yeshua had ascended, and Peter uh, was in prison, and that's where the angel of the Lord came. If you remember, and they said, was that Christophany as well? And I don't think it was, even though the same term is used. Um, when you see how it's used there, uh, I'm looking up the verse right now. The apostles free. Okay, the high priest rose up. They laid their hands on apostles and put them in the common prison. This is Acts 19 is where we're going to start here. But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said, go, stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life.
Mm.
Okay, and so when they heard that, they entered the temple early in the morning, but the doggone it, that's not the right one. But anyways, later on, when they're talking about it, said, and the Lord sent his angel to free us. And so I think there's a distinction, and the reason I say there's a distinction is because when you look at, say, just look at Genesis 16. It
Mm.
says the angel of the Lord said unto her, and this is where he's talking to uh, the mother of Ishmael,
Mm.
you know, and says, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh hath heard thy affliction. And he
Mm.
will be a wild man, and his hand against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of Yahweh that spake unto her, thou God seest me. And for she said, I have also looked after him that seeketh me. And so she was recognizing this voice as being not just an angel, but actually being God, God in one form or another in his manifestation.
Mm.
We also see in Genesis 22, the angel of Yahweh called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I
Mm.
am. And this is when Abraham was offering up Isaac. He said, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, looked, and behold, there was a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham
Mm.
called the name of the place Jehovah Jireh, as is said to this day, in the mount of Yahweh it shall be seen. And then says, and the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time and said, by myself have I sworn, saith Yahweh. And so we can see that that is being directly identified as being God.
Mm.
And we have there's quite a few other places. If you're interested in it, you can look at Judges 16:11 with Gideon. You can look at Exodus 23:20 and 21 as well. So that's just a few examples where they're recognizing whatever this angel
Mm.
is a manifestation in one way or form of God. And it's not
Mm.
just a messenger with a message from him. So
Mm.
I just wanted to mention that. So no, in Acts 5 and in wherever they're released again, I don't see that because it said that it was an angel sent from the Lord. And so
Mm.
you kind of have to look at the context of it. In these verses, when angel of the Lord's used in the Old Testament, they accept worship, they accept sacrifice, they accept that adoration. But then if you look in Revelation, you see angels and they deny it, and they won't let them be worshiped. They won't let
Mm.
others adore them. It's a worship only God. So I just wanted to throw that out there from last week.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you. Um, do you think the I'm really trying to think through like just what God is to put it
Uh,
simply, and like specifically like through the Psalms teachings that my dad's doing, it gets me thinking about what has existed before, Adam and Eve, or before Jesus, like what existed in these different eras. And the word existed in the beginning, and like God's image existed before Adam and Eve. Just these different aspects of God existed. And we'll get to these questions from the chat, but I wanted to ask you, like, when God appears in the Old Testament in these ways that you're talking about, is it just God? It's just Yahweh? You just read it, but like, is it the word? Does the word show up? Do you get what
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying to
think it.
ask?
I see, and this is the way I see it, and
Okay.
I can only explain it. And we run into a problem here in that, in one way, we can understand God, but we can only understand God in the way that He has given us to actually understand that it is Him,
Yes,
if that
right.
makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
think we can even begin to truly comprehend a lot of those questions, but through what He does show us, we can understand how He wants us, as the physical finite creatures we are, to understand Him. And
Okay.
so when He wanted to appear to us to give a message, to say the Old Testament people, He appeared and discussed with them in a way that they could understand and who they were. It was
I
always,
see.
He
Yeah.
always condescends. And so whatever our perception is how He wanted it to be
Mm,
perceived, if that makes
yeah.
sense. So has anyone ever seen God? No, you can't see a spirit, but does that mean that God doesn't manifest Himself in a way for us to comprehend and perceive? I think He
Yeah.
clearly does, but
Yeah.
no one's ever seen the entirety of God. How could you witness everything all at once, all at the same
Yeah.
time, kind of concept?
That concept is what made Jesus make sense to me when I realized that. Like, growing up, I did not understand why, the church just says this person died. And if you believe that he died and resurrected, you're saved. And it literally did not make sense to me. It's like, what, why? Like, what? It just, they just tell you that, and I don't know. So when
Yeah,
I figured
exactly.
out,
You have nowhere to go with that.
yeah,
So,
it's so
what
weird.
do I just believe that He did that, or was it actually something He did? And then
Yeah.
they bring even more confusion, because they're like, well, if you don't believe it, then He didn't do it for you.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah,
well, wait a second,
exactly. Yeah.
that really isn't making sense. And the gospel is, in my opinion, that is what He did. Don't go to something else. The gospel is, this is what was accomplished for you and everyone. Turn
Mm.
to Him, not to something else.
Yes, but yeah, but the idea that he condescends and comes in a good way, condescends, like he became a person. I don't know, just Jesus, Yeshua being an abstraction of God for us to understand God, it that made sense to me, where it's like, oh, he, like, God is bigger than Yeshua. Like, there's more to God than Yeshua. Yeshua is just God's word. Like,
Mhm.
anyway. And it seems like
Yeah,
God's,
I
yeah.
get what I get, and it is it. What's so amazing about that is, if you want to see just how humble God is,
Yeah.
He made His word flesh. I mean, that the idea that if you ever
Yeah.
question whether God loves us, whether He loves people, whether He loves human beings, just look at what He sacrificed, what He did
Yeah.
to
Totally.
save us from death. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I'm not
Yeah.
talking physical death. I'm talking about a spiritual death of the soul.
Yeah. We just had an I Don't Get the Bible that's going to come out. And I, we both, my dad and I got so emotional when he was explaining, and it finally registered with me when Jesus, like, is on the cross and said, like, God, my dad said, God turned his back on him. Like he said, why have you forsaken me? And that, like you're saying, that's when Jesus actually experienced spiritual death. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've felt that just a little bit before, and it's so gnarly that he went through that. And I don't
It
know.
is
Like you said, it's very
absolutely
humble.
amazing.
Yeah.
And for it's amazing for us looking on the outside in, but I don't even think we can begin to grasp the actual intimacy of the spiritual union that was in that between, say, the Father and Son, or El and His Word. Yes, the physical act of procreation, is just say sex, is a shadow of that, but all the shadows are always so much less than what the true glory was that was in heaven, that these represented. And that intimacy, I can't even imagine what it was like.
Yeah.
And so we look at it and know it would be terrible to, someone you love that is your wife or your mate, and to abandon them for the greater good. But I think it was so much more impactful spiritually, literally spiritually impactful. So it's just amazing, the sacrifice.
Yeah. Sarah says Jesus is the personification of agape love. I get emotional thinking about what he did for us too. And I personally have experienced the church to have like mythologized Jesus in a way that makes him so like removed, and the Trinity, for him to exist from the very start, like it's just removed. And it's like, okay, of course this guy could be sinless, but the reality of it is that he was a person, and it's very intimate, like you were saying. And that, when you start to see it that way, it's so much more meaningful.
Absolutely. I think to take away that humanity
Yes,
is to not nullify, but it is to so depreciate who he was and what he did and the sacrifice he brought.
it really does. It really does. I don't see how people don't see that. But well, I didn't mean to take up that time, but let's get to some of these questions here.
That's what it's for, sis. I love it.
You're so great to talk to. Most of these questions are going to go to you, all right? So I'll read them for you, okay?
All right, sis.
Where do you think the Ten Command, the Ark, went? What happened to them?
Where do I think the Ten Commandments and the Ark went?
Yeah.
They never show up again after the seizing of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, and they went into Babylonian captivity. Personally, I'm on the fence about it, so I wouldn't say yes 100% this, but I believe it was taken directly into heaven, because there is a verse in Revelation that says, and the temple of the Lord was opened and the Ark of the Covenant was seen. And we know that the Ark of the Covenant was not on earth. And so I believe it was taken to heaven, because you do have to remember that old covenant was declared old and obsolete before they went into Babylonian captivity. It had been broken. And so they were promised a new covenant. And so everything after Babylonian captivity, yes, they had the law, and this is what they're doing, but that Ark of the Covenant wasn't there. The covenant had been broken. They were to be looking forward to a new covenant that was coming through the Messiah that was going to be there. And I think that's something that's often missed, is when the high priest went into the Holy of Holies after they came out of Babylonian captivity, when they rebuilt that second temple, there was no Ark of the Covenant there. They were literally throwing the blood onto a stone that the Ark of the Covenant used to sit upon. And so I believe that covenant, because it had been broken, I believe it was taken to heaven. Now there's, lots of different views. There can be argument about that. That's just what I think, because it does make it a specific point in Revelation to say that in heaven the temple was open and the Ark of the Covenant was seen. And that was a heavenly scene.
All right. Thank you. I wish I'm trying to read for myself, so I have more to respond to. in these conversations, but I have no knowledge at this point. So thank you for being here. Okay, let's keep going. I have a question for Grady.
All
What's
right.
the Christian culture like in Mexico? Is it at all similar to the U.S.? I've heard the prosperity gospel slash charismatic denomination are more popular there. I would have thought Catholicism was dominant.
Catholicism is more like a nationality. There
Huh.
are Catholics, but and most people you speak to, they would say they're Catholic, but are they practicing like say in the like a U.S. Catholic? There's
Hmm.
Catholics who are Catholics, and then there's Catholics who I'm from Mexico, and so I'm a Catholic, and my father was a Catholic, my mother was a Catholic, so I'm a Catholic, and then there are those who practice it. It's really a lot like in the United States in that sense. As far as one of the differences I see, especially, well, let me just talk about my area, of course, because a lot of this is regional, where we're at. If you aren't Catholic, it seems like you're very much not Catholic. And so there's more of a not, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm not really with any religion. Generally speaking, you're either Catholic and active or not active.
Hmm.
But if you aren't Catholic, it seems like you're actively not Catholic. So you're more active in whatever denomination you would be. So if you're Baptist, you're not don't just say I'm a Christian, but I'm not a Catholic. If you're going to identify as not being Catholic, it's because you do identify actively as being something else. I
Hmm.
don't know if that makes much sense, but that because here it's a little different now, but 25 years ago, if you weren't Catholic, it was almost like you were somehow less Mexican in a way, because that
Hmm.
was part of your nationality, was part of being Catholic. But that with internet and TV and all that, satellite TV, that kind of strictness is kind of waned off. And so, you have a lot of
Hmm.
seculars. No, I'm not Catholic. I'm not Christian in any way, shape, or form. Don't. There are a lot that acknowledge nothing. But if you are going to say you're a Christian, usually it means that you're more active than not active in a particular religion. In the U.S., you can say you're a Christian and like, okay, well, you might not be active, but if you're going to say you aren't Catholic in Mexico, it's because you're usually more active in whatever religion you are claiming.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Were your family, you came from, you were the son of a pastor, and
Yeah.
he was, what was he, and was it in Mexico that he had his congregation?
No, my dad started out. He went to Liberty Baptist University, where uh,
Oh, wow.
you know, in Lynchburg, Virginia, with Jerry
Yeah.
Falwell, his
Huh.
Liberty University there.
Mm-hmm.
And he graduated after he got out of the Air Force. And he started a church in Dixon, Illinois. And he had that for a couple of years. Then he took over a church in Mount Vernon, Ohio.
Hmm.
And we were fundamental Baptist, not as strict as a lot when you think fundamental Baptist, fundamental independent Baptist. We were King James only, but it wasn't something that we only use King James Bible. But if someone didn't, well, that was okay. Uh,
Hmm.
for the most part. Now you wanted to start teaching, say, Sunday school and that, well, then you're going to have to start using the King James. But it wasn't really super strict. But the one thing I'll say for my dad, particularly, is he was always seeking. And when we just realized there wasn't any desire, at least where we were at that time. I came back from a missions trip in Haiti, and just seeing the longing of people in Haiti just to hear anything
Hmm.
about God, about the Bible. They'd sit for 3 and 4 hours and be upset when you had to leave. And so, I mean, we couldn't, generally speaking, you can't get people in the U.S. to sit for 30 minutes to listen into a Bible study. So it was really a difference. And when I came back, like we just, we felt led to do something. So we all came together and prayed, and my family, and we decided Mexico was where we were going. And
Hmm.
we within a month after that, we had given our house to a couple and that had been in the church, and they were going to help take care of my grandparents because they couldn't come with us. And so they took care of my grandparents until they passed away, and we came down to Mexico within a month and didn't speak Spanish, anything, just came and started doing what we could do. And the way Yeshua and Yahweh blessed that is just amazing. And, my father changed a lot of his views, and he really started diving into the Bible versus studying what he knew he was supposed to see. He actually dove into the Bible as I did, and saw a lot of things quite a bit differently. So that's where we came from, and that was, let's see, it was almost 30 years ago now. So then I was here with a year or two with them, and then I ended up going in the military and whatnot. So
that's really interesting.
so yeah, but he started out that way, but then we came down, and it really, the whole idea of denomination kind of faded away. It was now just, we're Christian, we believe the Bible, let's read it and study it together. That was our whole ministry, and that was the whole principle and understanding is, let's just get into the Bible and see what it says.
Okay. All right, I want to get to this question now. Why do Christians worship the version of Jesus as if he had taken the deal from the devil? The devil promised people would worship you. All the kingdoms will be yours if you worship me. What do you think about that?
Okay, that's by Daniel. Why do Christians worship the version of Jesus as if he had taken the deal from the devil? Okay, I really don't understand it. What was being done there in that temptation, it was Yeshua had the whole power and authority and ability to become the Messiah that the Jews were looking for. He had the ability to be that earthly ruler. He could have been what they were looking for physically, instead of humbling himself and doing what he did spiritually to have the spiritual victory. And the spiritual was always what the predominant was. And so he could have yielded to that Jewish system. Okay, that's what the Satan was there, in my opinion. It was him fighting and reckoning through his humanity and his Jewishness. Was he going to be a Jew, a religious Jewish man who was the Messiah, or was he going to be the savior spiritually of all that he was sent to do? And so he is worshiped because of who he is and what he did spiritually, not because of the physical man who took over and ruled upon a physical throne. And that is what he could have done.
I think, though, that so that's describing what we at the Great News Network, how we understand Jesus. But I think Daniel's question is valid. And like Sarah said, a lot of Christians do see it as if Jesus does rule materially or something. Like he did take that deal with the devil. Yeah, like Sarah's saying, many Christians today think God's kingdom is of this world. They need to fight for his dominance in this world. And we don't agree with that. And that's why we're fighting to maybe not use the term Christian for ourselves. But why do you think Christians take it that way? Like, where do you think that comes from?
I guess I'm kind of missing there, because I don't see Christians as believing that Yeshua sits on a throne on earth physically. That's what a lot of them are waiting for him to come and do.
Yeah, but they think that like Sarah's saying, they think God's kingdom is in this world. There's a political way to be a Christian. There's a there's
with that. Yeah, I don't. Look, it's subjective. And is the kingdom here now? Yes, it is. But it is only a kingdom that is spiritual, and it's subjective, individual. But it isn't a overall.
That's what we think. But what perspective on the Bible do Christians have about maybe the future coming that makes them materially function the way they do and demand things materially, Like they think, like
it
you
it
said, they think
it's
Jesus is coming back materially and the resurrection is going to be material and all
no,
these, right? So that,
it's the same trap and ununderstanding that the Jews had. It was, we want this physical kingdom. We want this physical man sitting on a physical throne with a physical rod of iron to physically rule over physical earth. And Christians believe that that is still going to happen. And so we are basically, many believe we are preparing for that to come. And the world is going to, some believe that the world is going to keep getting worse and worse and worse until the tribulation comes. Those are the premillennial people who, it's just going to get worse and worse, and finally he's going to come, the tribulation's going to happen, and then we're going to have the 1,000 years reign of Christ physically on a throne. And then others believe it's going to get good, it's going to get better and better and better, and eventually Christ, once it gets good enough, then Christ will come and physically reign on a physical throne over all the physical nations of the earth.
yeah,
And they miss the entire spiritual aspect that the kingdom is
yeah,
always throughout scripture shown to be and to have. And so
yeah,
it's the same. We get so focused on our physical understanding and who we physically are in our physical existence in a physical world that we can't imagine that he's not going to physically come and sit physically on a throne and physically rule and reign. But the Bible, time and time again, especially Yeshua himself, always says, this, my kingdom is not of this world. It is a spiritual kingdom. It's within you. It's not this physical. But like the Jews before, that's what they were seeking. That's what they were looking for, was physical.
yeah. Daniel, you come in. I don't think, if you're new listening to this, Daniel often comes in, and I think you're trying to say things that articulate that we Christians are dumb for thinking Jesus is God, or whatever you're trying to do. We are not, I don't think you ever give us the credit that we are not promoting most of the things that Christians promote. We are not saying this is a material belief system, or Daniel saying, now the devil took Jesus to the Holy of Holies. Jesus was standing on the wings of the cherubim above the ark, and the devil told him to place himself below and you will be worshipped. And now Christians say Jesus is Yahweh and worships him like Yahweh was worshipped. And I think, Daniel, I think you articulated at one point, or you called in and said, maybe I'm mixing you up with someone, but you said that you think God is of the dark or something like that. So I'm trying to get you to state the exact point or question, because I don't understand. You come in and you'll say different statements often, and I'm not entirely sure what your intention is here. So
Yeah, well, I also, if that's what Daniel wants to believe, that the devil took
yeah,
Jesus to the Holy of Holies, and that's fine, but that
yeah,
is not in the scriptures.
yeah,
It
well,
just isn't
yeah.
there.
So where do you get that, Daniel? Let us know. Sarah says in response, I don't think it was about him being worshipped. It was about power and rule in this world. The temptation was the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, the pride of life, which was ruling over the world with a material kingdom, and Christ rejected that. Yeah, that seems pretty clear.
Look at the Jewish system of that time. Look at, well, I mean, everything that was set up, and that'll even, that could even bring us into the cosmos discussion there that Todd asked about.
Yes, we
Because
should look at that.
we really don't grasp just how, and I will use this word and I can back it up biblically, how idolatrous the Judaism was. And
Yeah,
Yeshua even refers to them as that type of a generation. I mean, their temple was known as Herod's temple. When you think about it, and it was something that even Jewish leaders at that time really didn't like, because it was referred to as being Herod's temple. The whole concept, the whole idea of what it was supposed to be had been lost. That's why Yeshua never has anything good to say about the Jewish leaders of that time, and always accuses them of being of their father, the devil.
Well,
We really do miss just how for lack of a better word, how ungodly is Judaism had become and what
yeah.
it was. We really do miss that because we in this mostly because of Zionistic influence that really crept up. It really didn't creep up. It really became mandatory under Darby and the whole idea of that Yeshua was going to return and that the world was getting worse and worse and that there had to be a second coming that had not happened yet, and there was going to be a tribulation, and the whole futurist view in that way between Darby and Schofield that started in the early to mid 1800s is where that concept even came from.
Yeah, it's just really clear that it's the continual problem that individuals and institutions will always face is just materializing idolatry. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely. And I think that was kind of the whole anytime that humans are given something physical,
Yeah.
we end up turning it into an idol. And look, you can do the same thing with the Bible. You can do
Yeah.
the same thing with absolutely anything.
That's
And
our
my
life.
go-to definition is anything that you look at to somehow help mediate or provide you better or increase your access to God that is not Yeshua is an idol. So
Yeah.
if you do something, if you say I'm a homosexual, so I really don't have as much access to God as I should, you have made your homosexuality an issue.
Yeah.
If it's looking at pornography, if you look at porn and then you say, well, I looked at that, now doggone it, I'm not quite as willing or able to enter into his presence. You've made that an idol. If you believe you have to go to a structure or through a certain group or to a certain man to somehow be have better access to God, then you have made that a mediator that
Yeah.
is not Yeshua, and that is idolatry.
I got to a point in my own life where agape love was an idol. Like I was willing myself to show love because of the emphasis of my own father across my life to show people love. I put the cart before the horse, and it had me chaotic. Like that can even be an idol. So
Yep.
it's really
Well, and
interesting.
especially, the thing is, I look at agape love, and I'm sure Dad would agree with this, is I look at it as decision and action. And so if you are doing, if you decide to act benevolently, and the thing is, though, why are you doing that? Well, if you're doing it because, God loves me and I really hate that SOB there and I want to beat the crap out of him, but I'm not going to do it because God loves him and that's not what I should do. That is one thing. But without that decision, it just becomes coincidence. And so if you feel the Spirit leading you, hey, there's someone there, they need food, I'm going to help. I'm going to help them because I feel that's what I should do, and not because they don't do anything for you or vice versa. That's good, but guess what? You might not do that for the next one that's there. And so it's really learning to seek and follow the leading of the Spirit as you go, and it's not a mandatory. I must do this for everybody everywhere. You just can't do that, and so it can turn into an idol. I exactly see what you're saying.
Yeah. Should we get to Todd's question from the community?
Sure.
Just a
Sure.
reminder, if you are new here, we have a community at the Great News Network where you can submit questions and discuss other things. So I'll read
Do
it
you happen to have
here.
his question up there?
Yeah. Do you want me to? I'm going to
Oh,
read
great.
it. Does that work?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm reading through your Book of John notes. This is Todd asking and referring to my dad's Sean's Gospel of John commentary, and he says on page 14, point out 23, John uses cosmos that you said is not referring to the whole world. If that's true, why didn't John use a different Greek word as he used to distinguish in other places? And two, why isn't it the whole world? After all, Christ did bring light to every man that all might believe through him. What am I missing here?
Okay, what we're missing is cosmo, and this is one of the big things that I think preterism ends up doing that actually is confusing and is not true. Cosmos does not always mean everything everywhere the universe. It does not mean that. It can refer to simply as certain people. It can refer to creation. It means, let's look up the word. Let's look at John 1:10. Now that I'll go ahead and pulled up John 1:10.
I think that's probably what he's referring to.
Go ahead. Yeah, he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Okay. If we look at that, where the world is there every time, it is cosmos. And so he was in the creation, if you want to say that, okay. And the creation was made by him, fully there, and the world knew him not. And then it reiterates, he came into his own, and his own received him not. Well, the world, where it's talking about, it's referring to people. Look at John 3:16. So we have two different places there. We have world being shown as being part of, into creation, and creation knew him not. Well, it's not the rocks and hills that didn't recognize him. It's talking about people. John 3:16. God so loved the world. Right there's cosmos again. He gives only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Well, who is going to believe in him in the world? It's people, right? And so it's referring to people. When we look up the word cosmos, let me go to the interlinear here. It is adorning or world, adornment, worlds. It has to do with an arrangement, orderly arrangement and decoration. If you look at I believe it's First Peter. I don't have it right here. Doggone it. But it refers to putting on jewelry and robes and that, and it refers to it as being their arrangement. In fact, that's a really important one because I think I really want to show it. Let me look it up if you give me just a second.
Yeah.
Because it means an adornment, cosmology, cosmetics. Okay, think about a woman. It has to do with a system, an ordered system. You look at the orderedness of the universe. It is ordered. You have sun, moon, stars, day, night, light, dark. It's set in an order. It's a cosmic order. But also, Judaism itself was a cosmos. It was a set up, designed order, a way in which things were to work, an organized setup. A woman who puts on makeup, she applies it in this way and that way to make her face orderly, order her face into the way in which she wants it perceived. She uses the makeup to bring order to her face. There's a place in Peter, and I'm not finding the specific reference, so I won't. I'll just emphasize it. It's where Peter talks about. He says, you're putting on these robes and you're doing all this, and you are in this cosmos, and it has to do with the way in which he appeared and his appearance. And so when we look at cosmos, if you present cosmos as being world, a universe, creation in general, that is not how the word is actually used. And when preterists use that way, they really do a disservice, because there are lots of verses where the cosmos is actually referring to that established order. Just like ye was the land and the system and the world and the heavens and the earth, that heavens and earth was the cosmos. And Judaism, not Judaism, but what was set up, that was the cosmos. And Judaism was the cosmos that was perverting it and turning it into something it was never supposed to be. So go ahead and look at the word yourself. There's lots of variations. Between 8 and 10 variations that we can find simply in the book of John itself, where cosmos isn't referring to everything created. It's actually referring to certain groups of people. The Pharisees say, look at this, all the cosmos is following him. Well, no, it's not, because they themselves weren't. So you can't say all the cosmos, all the people were following him. And right there, it's referring to just the people. It's an organized group. It's an organization. It's an organized pattern. And so, can it refer to the entire universe? Absolutely, it can, and it does. But is it limited to that? Absolutely not. Which is exemplified through many different verses. And just to throw those up there, I'll just John 1:10, we have John 17:5, John 13:1, John 13:6 through 17, John 12:31, where John 12:31 is one where it specifically talks about the ruler of this cosmos. Well, what cosmos? It's talking about Judaism there. I'm sorry. The ruler of that cosmos was the high priest, and guess what? He has nothing to do with me. Well, guess what? And he did. And who came to arrest him? The ruler of that cosmos. And so we start putting those together, and you'll see that cosmos does not always mean, and oftentimes does not refer to creation or the divine order in its entirety. It can be used to just simply mean the system, an organized system. Does that make sense, or does it need more clarification?
No, it makes a lot of sense. I just have to ask you, what did you do to understand like Hebrew culture? What did you do? Because you understand it really well, and I think it's just a really useful tool in understanding the Bible.
Well, there's two different ways. Just reading the Bible and seeing how they interacted and what they actually did.
Yeah.
Things like the servant that Abraham sends. He takes jewelry. He takes things to as a what do you call it? The bride price type thing to give to the family, and gives. But those things, they're things that you can pick out once you know the pattern is there. But basically, you just study what a lot of Jewish writings refer to, and that's where that's a double-edged sword. And I was talking to Charlie just about this just last week, and where do the Jewish writings, are they helpful? Are the extra biblical Jewish writings helpful? Yes and no. They can be helpful to see what they thought and what they believed. But what we have to realize is make sure that your doctrine isn't based on that, because their understanding of what it was supposed to be was completely wrong. But as far as their customs go, you can learn a lot of customs from extra biblical Jewish writings. And then a lot of it comes from tradition as well. One of the best places to really dive into that, if you want, I'll try to find the guy's YouTube channel here real quick. Actually, I won't. I'll just tell you what you need to look for. If you go to YouTube He isn't a rabbi. He is a Jewish historian, and he openly and adamantly proclaims he's not a rabbi. But
Mm-hmm.
he just goes through Jewish history, he goes through Jewish customs, he explains so much. I wish I knew the man's name. In fact, if you'll just give me the grace and I'll give it to you next week, and I'll even
Yes.
let you know what his channel is. But studying extra biblical literature on Jews and what they thought really does help. And look at what rabbis talk about with wedding. Look at their what they write
Mm-hmm.
about wedding customs.
Mm-hmm.
It'll really help you understand a lot. For instance, do you know how when they break the glass, they both drink out of the glass of wine, and then they crush it underfoot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At a Jewish wedding, that represents the destruction of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that represents. And so when
That's
you
really
start looking at that,
interesting.
you start going back and you start seeing the significance of these things.
Yeah.
It really does. Particularly, if I had to encourage someone to study one particular thing, it would be the Jewish wedding motif,
Hmm.
and look at what they did and how it was set up.
Hmm.
And it changed over time, and you're going to see different variations. But if you really want to see the relation of the church with Yeshua and with Yahweh and how that goes, that will make so many passages clear.
Wow.
But basically, it's studying Jewish history and Jewish tradition, and you have to eat the fish and spit out the bones. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a book, and I'll give you the title, and we can put it up in the comments, or I'll put it
Yeah.
up in the comments. It was
Yes.
a particularly book I read. It was just on Jewish customs
Hmm.
of the Old Testament, and it was not that big. It's 300-400 pages, but it really, really brings a lot of the understanding out. And I'll post that in the comments after the
Hmm.
show's over.
That's awesome. All right. Okay. That, and just real quick, that makes so much sense that to um the fact that you say the wedding customs help. I mean, now that you say that, the whole story of Jesus is about that and the bride and all that stuff. It is really interesting, and it's probably
Absolutely. Look, that's
obvious,
why
but
he didn't know the day or hour.
yeah.
Okay, everyone's like, why didn't Yeshua know the day or the hour?
Hmm.
Why? Because the groom never knew the day or hour. A groom
Hmm.
would always go back for his woman whenever he
Wow.
could. No, but he had an obligation, right? He had to make that room. He had to add it on to his father's house. And the one
Wow.
who was going to determine when the son's house was adequate for the bride he was going to bring was the father. He says, oh, so the father would inspect the house. Okay, this looks good. I like this. This is nice. This is good for her. Yeah, go get her. If it was just a man, he'd throw a bed in a room and hey, we'll fix it up later. But hey, we
Yeah.
got a bed. That's all that's important, right? No,
Yeah.
but the father, he wanted that house prepared. He wanted it nice, and so the son didn't return for his bride until the father said, okay, this is established, this house is good, now you can go get your bride. So there was no way for Yeshua as the groom to know, because it wasn't up to him.
That's fascinating. That is so interesting. I have so much to learn, and it's exciting. The more you learn about this, the more it just is like just profound, you know.
It really, really is. And if there was one single thing that I think would help bring out so much of the scriptures, is if we had a better understanding in general of what Hebrew wedding customs were, ketubas, and how they were
Mm,
signed and who signed them and who was the witnesses and how it was sealed.
mm.
All those things, they all are so ingrained into the New Testament and Yeshua's relation with that bride.
I don't know if you covered this in your eschatology course, but if you did a specific course on Jewish wedding customs, I think it would be, and the alignment with fulfillment, I think it would be astounding, and I
I do
hope you
too. I
consider
think
that.
that probably instead of incorporating it so much, probably it'd be a good idea just to go straight through that
Yeah.
to show how important that was,
Yeah.
and all the different parts to it.
I don't think
I think
anyone,
that's a great idea. That'll be my next one. I'll get that up there.
I really, really hope you do that because I think it's such underknown knowledge that I think you have a heightened knowledge in. And I would just love to learn about that. Um, okay, we have 2 minutes, but I wanted to read a couple questions. Phoenix, you said virgins, not virginity. I think that was while Grady was speaking and it was a clarification, but I'm not sure. And I'm sorry if that was a question and we missed it. But quickly, Grillmaster said, what spirit did Job fight? You have an answer for that, Grady? 1 minute.
No, I need to have more context on it.
Okay.
Put it in the comments. I'll take a look at it and respond to it next week, if you will.
All right. That's great. Anything to wrap up with?
No, I'm good to go. I enjoyed this. This was quite a bit different.
I know.
I really am not. I really want to go through, and I'll put up a paper or a video within the next week or two going through Cosmos, because I really do think that's something that is misunderstood.
Yeah.
And so be looking for that. I'll try to get that done within the next couple weeks.
That's great. And of course, on that too, Sarah said that that was the most clarified explanation of the word cosmos in the Bible she's ever heard, which I agree with. You are such a wealth of knowledge. Thank you, Grady.
Oh, no problem. I really wish I had prepared more for that. I have a lot of verses that were there, but trying to look them up while I'm responding, there's a lot of verses that will be in the video, and so be looking for that.
Awesome. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Grady, for everything.
Hey, thank you. Loved it. We'll catch you all next week.
All right.